I'm Lance Lysowski, the Sabres beat writer for the Buffalo News, back reporting for you in Prague in front of O2 Arena, where the Sabres will be playing the New Jersey Devils on Friday and Saturday as both open their season in what the NHL calls its Global Series. The Sabres did not practice in this building today. They were at a facility called Ice Rink, which is about 20 minutes in that direction. And then they bus back over here because the two teams, there's not enough locker room space for them to both be over there. They'll be skating here tomorrow. We did have media availabilities, got in the locker room, got to get a lay of the land, so to speak. But don't mistake that for any sort of evaluation of the Sabres practice today was easy or some sort of a walkthrough. It was as fast-paced, exhaustive, and I guess the one way you could put it is rowdy, with just how loud the players were, how loud the coaches were. It's been fascinating to see how they've reacted, the players that is, to just how much more intense this camp is compared to last year, where it's very odd to look back on, just given the expectations going into last season, into that training camp, and just how different the practices are. And this is what the players want. You see their body language, the way they're reacting to the drills, the way they're engaged in every drill. This is what, you heard it from them at the end of last season. They said it again at the start of camp, but even then, Kevin Adams said, well, let's wait and see. They said they want it. Let's see how they react. Well, they've reacted as well or better than he could have hoped. I spoke to Kevin Adams after practice today. You will be able to read that Q&A on the Buffalo News website at some point in the next 24 hours. A lot of power play work, which is to be expected. Training camp is over. This is a regular season practice. The Sabres are opening their season on Friday. So up and down, back and forth, the PK going against the power play. And obviously the focus is work, outworking an opponent. The Sabres were relying way too much on skill last year. And right now, they're trying to mix up their looks. They're going with some different strategies. They're trying some different schemes, is the way that Lindy Ruff put it. And so far, they've liked what they've seen. But as Rasmus Dahlin reminded reporters after practice today in Prague, they don't have game reps yet. So as much as you could feel good about a practice or what you did against a DEL team in Munich, the real thing doesn't begin until Friday when the Devils, who, despite the injury to Brett Pesce, that's a really good lineup. Top to bottom, it's built very similarly. And Lindy Ruff said as much as the Sabres. Really physical, fast, bottom six, although I would argue that Curtis Lazar is not exactly Sam Lafferty. There's a different speed element that Lafferty brings, but the fact of the matter is these are two very similar teams. They're going to play with pace. We saw the way Sheldon Keefe had the Toronto Maple Leafs play during his time up north, up the QEW, and not as much structure sometimes defensively. Perhaps that's different here with different personnel, different expectations, maybe some lessons that Keefe learned along the way that he's trying to apply in New Jersey. Tough to get a read on them. They're without Brett Pesce, as I mentioned. So Seamus Casey, a recent high draft pick, looks like he's going to be stepping into the lineup on the third pair with Simone Nemec, a top draft pick only a few years ago. How is that inexperienced pair going to fare against Buffalo? How is Buffalo going to try to take advantage of that matchup? We'll see how long that even lasts. But, Jacob Markstrom, expect to see him in the net on Friday for the Devils. Then they can go Jake Allen in game number 2. That's a pretty good tandem, too. This is not some rollover opening series of the Sabres. It's a very difficult challenge. The Devils, remember, last year going into the season with Ruff as their coach, they were picked by some, including this reporter, to go deep into the playoffs and even potentially make to the Stanley Cup final because on paper, they were very good. They had a very good season the year prior, but I and so many others overlooked the fact that their D-core wasn't good enough after losing so many pieces the previous offseason. We'll see how they look, this weekend in this series of games. Now, no line changes for the Sabres, of course. These lines have been the same for the last almost 3 weeks at this point. We can expect Petarka on the top line, Cousins centering the second, that Jason Zucker, Ryan McLeod, Jordan Greenway trio on the third has created chances in camp, but they haven't finished. Bobbled passes, some missed shots, so good opportunities, but you could say the same for the entire team. Like, they've had good possession, and I'm not really even referring to that game in Munich because it's a throwaway in my opinion. But if you look at those preseason games, despite facing some depleted, more AHL-heavy matchups, they did feel pretty good about the process. It's just the execution has to be much better, and just seeing the way that they've ramped it up, especially this week, talking to some people around the team, they called that practice on Monday. It was people really impressed. I'll just say that as much when it comes to Adams and all the support staff, just in terms of, you're always curious how the team is going to practice after playing in that game in Munich and transitioning into this phase of the trip where it's go time, so to speak. And they ramped it up then. Tuesday was a day off, back on the ice on Wednesday. And we will be back in this building on Thursday. Both teams practicing. Devils go first at 11 a.m. local time. The Sabres are around 12:15. And then it's morning skates on Friday and let the games begin. I'm Lysowski reporting live, somewhat live from Prague. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks again.